The thin moonlight hung in the sky over Dust Valley. The gray wooden houses huddled together along the main street, silent as abandoned coffins. The people had locked their doors early, turned off the lights, and drawn the curtains, as if they opened their eyes, the darkness outside would rush in and swallow them up. At the end of the street, the tavern was still lit. A deep laugh rang out, heavy as a hammer, pounding on the chests of those who heard it. It was the laugh of Samuel Kane, the man who was both feared and hated by all of Dust Valley. A giant with a bushy beard, dull gray eyes, and a bag of gold that always rattled at his side. In the small house across the street, Isabella Hartley leaned against the wooden doorframe, her heart pounding like a drum. She was only 19, her pale blue eyes still innocent, but her gaunt face was etched with fear. Tonight, she had a choice: run away or be the commodity of Samuel Kane tomorrow morning. Few people in Dust Valley remember Isabella as a radiant little girl. Her father was a blacksmith, his hands rough, but always holding his daughter high and laughing like the sound of a hammer hitting iron. Her mother had a sweet voice, smooth white skin, the pride of the whole town. Although poor, the family was full of warmth. But in the winter, when Isabella was 12, her father fell under the anvil and died in a work accident. After just one night, the little girl went from being a little princess to the sole pillar beside her sick mother. Her mother was too weak, coughing all day, unable to do heavy work, and her beauty accidentally became a thorn in the eyes of many men. A man with some money, famous for gambling, offered to take care of the mother and daughter. Isabella's mother, because she felt sorry for her skinny daughter, held back her tears and agreed to remarry, hoping that at least her daughter would have enough to eat. But that hope quickly turned into hell. That man, who later became Isabella's stepfather, spent his days and nights in alcohol and gambling. The initial promises turned into constant drunkenness, slaps, and beatings. Her mother became increasingly emaciated, with bruises on her arms that never faded. Isabella, only 13 years old, had to take over her mother's burden. She learned to sew, did laundry, and did anything to buy medicine. But medicine was too expensive, and at 14, her mother died of a violent fever. In the small room with only a flickering oil lamp, Isabella held her mother's cold hand, listening to her mother's ragged breathing until it stopped. That night, she lost the last person who loved her. Outside, her stepfather was still laughing heartily at the table. From that moment on, Isabella was nothing more than an object in someone else's hands. As Isabella began to grow from a skinny girl to a full-figured young woman, disaster struck. One night, her stepfather returned drunk, his bloodshot eyes sliding over her body. "Like your mother, but prettier," he slurred. Isabella panicked and backed into the corner of the bed. He lunged forward, his rough hands pinning her down. In her despair, she blurted out, "If you do that, you will never be able to sell me again. I will become worthless, and you will lose everything." The words cut like a knife. He paused, greed winning over instinct. He snorted, pushed her away, leaving her huddled in her torn dress, tears streaming down her face. That night, Isabella understood clearly. She was no longer human, but merely a commodity he was keeping for a bigger bargain. The day she turned 18, the bargain was made. In the smoky tavern, Kane sat tall, his gray eyes scanning like cold knives. In front of him stood his stepfather, his hands shaking as he placed a stack of IOUs. "How much do you owe me?" Kane asked, his voice as deep as a rolling stone. $700, but I have a way to pay." His stepfather swallowed. Then he pulled Isabella out, thrusting her toward Kane as if presenting a piece of merchandise. "She's yours, more beautiful than her mother. Take her, and your debt is gone." Isabella stood still. The words tore away her last shred of dignity. Kane slowly stood up, circling her as if inspecting a horse before buying it. Rough fingers lifted her chin. "She's a rare commodity. Tomorrow she'll follow me home." A stroke of the pen, a gleeful laugh, and Isabella's youth was sold in the blink of an eye. That night, she sat by the window of the dilapidated house, clutching her old Bible and her tattered duffel bag. Outside, Kane's laughter echoed. She knew, if she waited until morning, her life would be over. "If I don't run now, I'll never get another chance." she whispered, and the chants came from a boy. A soft knock sounded at the back door. Isabella, it's me, Eddie. Eddie, the stable boy, was dusty and his eyes were bright. The stable door is open, but you have to go now. If he finds out, I will be in trouble. Isabella squeezed his hand, her eyes brimming with tears. Thank you. God willing, we will meet again. Eddie disappeared into the darkness. She pulled up her shawl and stepped out. The stable appeared silent. Raven, her father's horse, looked up at her. She pressed her cheek against the mane. Forgive me, Raven. We must go. She shakily tied the saddle. Each click of the reins was like thunder. When everything was ready, she mounted, her whole body as taut as a bowstring. The main street was dark, save for the distant lights of the tavern. She kicked her heels. Raven stepped out, her hooves clopping like a drumbeat, but no one woke. Slowly, Dust Valley receded. The desert wind blew, carrying with it the stinging sand. The last light faded. Isabella felt her heart, unchained, throbbing with fear. She did not look back. If she did, she feared Raven would stop. They walked through the night, through the sand and the barren bushes. The moon sank behind the mountains, giving way to darkness. Isabella crouched down, hugging Raven's neck, whispering, "Hurry, my friend. The farther away from there, the better." By the time the first light of dawn tinged the horizon, Isabella had traveled 10 miles. Raven was panting, her body shaking with exhaustion. Isabella slid off her back, her legs numb, her whole body limp. She led Raven to a sparse cottonwood grove and sat down. The small water jug was nearly half empty. Her lips were dry and cracked, bleeding, but she still smiled shakily. For the first time in her life, she was truly outside Samuel Kane's grasp. Isabella looked up, looking at the endless blue sky. The desert was vast, harsh, and dangerous, but at least it was freedom, and she vowed she would never let anyone make her a commodity again. The desert was like a giant furnace during the day. The sun beat down like a white knife, cutting into her skin. Each grain of hot sand penetrated Isabella's thin shoes, making every step a torture. Raven, her faithful horse, was exhausted. Her black coat glistened with sweat, her flanks heaving. She was forced to let her rest in the shade of a cactus bush, while she herself collapsed, taking a small sip from her nearly empty water bottle. The cool water ran down her dry throat, making her want to cry. In all her years in Dust Valley, she had never imagined the harshness of nature beyond the town's boundaries. 3 days passed like a dream filled with nightmares. At night, she rode Raven under the stars, trying to avoid the eyes of her pursuers. During the day, she hid in low bushes or crevices in rocks, huddled to avoid the scorching heat. Every time she closed her eyes, she could hear Samuel Kane's laughter, the sound of pen on paper, and the humiliation of being offered up for bargaining. By the third day, the water was gone. Raven collapsed, her chest heaving, breathing hoarsely as if she were about to die. Isabella knelt beside him, her hands trembling as she stroked his mane, her lips cracked as she mumbled, "Don't leave me. Raven, please don't leave me." Her eyes were blurred, whether from the sun or from her tears. Before her was only an endless expanse of sand. There were no trees, no shade, nothing but approaching death. In the haze, she suddenly saw a figure on the distant hilltop. A lone rider, tall and sturdy, sat firmly on his horse. The dawn light gilded his figure, making him appear like a mirage. Isabella's heart sank. She immediately reached into her pocket and pulled out her stepfather's old gun. It was a rusty Colt, one she had never fired, and didn't even know if it worked. But right now, it was the only weapon between her and the world of terror. The rider advanced slowly, not in a hurry, as if he was sure his prey would not escape. The distance was closing. Isabella braced herself, her hands shaking as she aimed the gun at him, her legs almost buckling from exhaustion. About 20 paces away, the man stopped. He slowly removed his hat, revealing long, tangled black hair and a tanned face, roughened by wind, sand, and time. His deep blue eyes looked at her, cold as steel but strangely calm. "Well, girl," he said hoarsely, hissing through his dry throat, "you look like you're in big trouble." Isabella swallowed, raising the gun, trying to keep her voice firm. I can take care of myself." The man's lips curled slightly, half sarcastically, half surprised. "Oh, Your horse doesn't think so. He tilted his head toward Raven. The horse was slumped, eyes glazed, breathing raggedly. Just one more day and it would collapse. Isabella was speechless. She gripped the gun tightly, but her hands were shaking. The stranger slowly dismounted, his movements smooth and graceful as if he had experienced countless life-and-death battles. He opened his leather bag, took out a water jug, and held it out in front of her. "I am Nathan Cross," he said, his voice calm, neither pleading nor forcing. "If I meant to harm you, you wouldn't be standing here now. Put away the gun, drink some water, or you and your horse will both be dead before the sun sets." Isabella looked at the glistening water jug in his hand, her throat burning with thirst, wanting to rush forward and snatch it. But fear still rose in her heart. Who knew if this man was any different from Samuel Cain? Was it a new trap? Nathan seemed to know. He put the water bottle on the ground, took a step back, then folded his arms, his eyes never leaving her. "It's up to you. Drink it and you can live longer. Don't drink it and you'll die here. I've lost nothing." Isabella swallowed. In her despair, reason finally screamed. She knelt down, her hands trembling as she picked up the water bottle. The first drop of water touched her dry lips, making her whole body tremble, feeling like heaven had just opened. She drank slowly, forcing herself not to be greedy. Raven also got her share, neighing softly as if in thanks. Thank you," Isabella whispered, her voice hoarse. Nathan nodded slightly. His blue eyes followed her, as if trying to read every layer of thought. "What's your name?" She hesitated for a moment, then blurted out, Mary Smith." Nathan's mouth curved up again, half smiling, half mocking. "Mary Smith, huh? That sounds like a fake name." Her cheeks flushed. She turned away, gripping the gun tighter. "My business is none of your business." "Yes," he nodded, his voice still warm and cold. "But the desert doesn't care who you are. It kills everyone if you go alone." He pointed toward the mountains to the west. "There's a waterhole about 5 miles away. I'm heading there. Go if you want. Don't." With that, Nathan turned, mounted his horse, and started west. Isabella watched, her heart pounding. If she left him alone, she would be dead before the sun set. But if she followed, she would be betting her life on a stranger. Fear gripped her chest. Then Raven whinnied softly, her eyes pleading with her. Isabella gripped the water bottle, swallowed regrets. The first days with Nathan, the desert was less scary. He didn't say much, but his actions were clear. Giving Raven the big water, letting Isabella rest more than him, standing guard all night while she slept. Those dark blue eyes were always calm, as if they had experienced storms even more violent than this desert. Isabella still called herself Mary Smith, keeping her secret tightly. But sometimes, in the quiet moments by the fire, she blurted out about her mother's singing, about her childhood dreams of seeing the sea. Nathan just sat still, his eyes shining with a rare gentleness. On the 4th night, amid the howling wind, he opened his heart for the first time. "I was a soldier, many years ago, saw too much blood. Since then I haven't called anywhere home." His voice was hoarse, like pebbles rolling in the wind. Isabella looked at the long scar on his wrist, a strange pity rising in her heart. But the short peace could not hide the shadow that was chasing her. The next morning, as they crossed a rocky area, Nathan leaned down, his eyes sharp. Hoof prints, new, heavy, many. He touched the deep prints in the sand, his hand hard. Not just passing through, they're looking for someone. Isabella felt her blood run cold. Her hand tightened unconsciously on the duffel bag. Nathan turned, his blue eyes piercing. "Mary, this isn't a coincidence. Who's after you?" She shook her head, her lips dry and cracked. No one." Nathan tightened his grip on his saddle, his voice hard. "Lies in the desert will kill us both. If I don't know my enemy, I can't protect you." The weight of his voice made Isabella's last defense collapse. Tears welled up and she whispered, "My name isn't Mary. I'm Isabella Hartley. My stepfather sold me to Samuel Cain. If he finds me, I'll never be free again." Nathan paused. A name, Cain, made his eyes darken. "Cain," he gritted his teeth. "I know him, worked for him once, a viper in human form." Isabella choked, her face lowered. "You should leave me behind. I bring only danger." Nathan stepped forward, his shadow covering her. "Listen clearly. A man like Cain has no right to anyone's life. You are not a commodity, and I will not let him have you." His words were like a knife cutting through the chains in Isabella's heart. She looked into those blue eyes and saw not pity, but determination. For the first time, she believed someone was willing to stand by her. That afternoon, as the sun burned red as blood, the sound of horses' hooves echoed in the distance. Dust swirled in the air. Nathan pulled Isabella into a mesquite bush, his eyes as sharp as a hawk's. 4 of them, fully armed. And he's there. Isabella held her breath and peered through the leaves. Indeed, at the head of the pack was a familiar, hulking figure, Samuel Cain. He sat firmly on his horse, his eyes snarling as he swept around, his thick beard seemingly obscuring his brutal face. "Spread out!" Cain roared. "She's somewhere nearby. Don't let her escape." Isabella's heart clenched. His voice made her tremble, as if she were back in the night when she was being bargained for. Nathan touched her shoulder lightly. "Trust me?" She nodded, though her throat was tight. He tightened his grip on the colt, stepped out of cover, and stood straight in the afternoon light. "Cain!" he called, his voice echoing. The 4 men flinched, reining in their horses. Cain narrowed his eyes, then laughed contemptuously. "Nathan Cross, I should have known. Always meddling in matters that weren't yours." Nathan replied, his voice as hard as steel. "That girl isn't yours. No one's. She's mine." Cain laughed loudly, his laugh as hoarse as iron scraping against stone. "She's merchandise, papered, signed. She's mine." "Your law is not justice." Nathan raised his gun, his voice thunderous. "Let her go. Go back before it's too late." The air was thick. Dust swirled in the twilight. Each hand trembled on the butt of a gun. "Kill him!" Cain roared. The gun went off. Nathan lunged to one side, drew both Colts, and fired 2 shots in quick succession. 2 men fell from their saddles. The 3rd shot pierced the 3rd man's shoulder. Cain roared, drew his shotgun, and fired. Rubble flew in front of Nathan. Isabella screamed, her heart bursting. Nathan rolled to the ground, fired back, and killed the 3rd man. But Cain had charged like a bull, the shotgun flying out of his hand, his big hands grabbing Nathan, throwing him to the ground. The 2 struggled, dust flying everywhere. Cain pressed down, his hands squeezing Nathan's neck. His veins bulged. Nathan's eyes were bloodshot. His breathing was ragged. Isabella stood frozen. At her feet, her stepfather's old gun fell out of his pocket. Her hand trembled as she picked it up. Her heart was pounding as if it was about to explode. Cain turned his head, roaring, "Stand still, girl. You don't dare." Isabella raised her gun, tears streaming down her face. In that moment, she saw clearly. If she didn't do something, Nathan would die, and she would be back in chains. Nathan's voice was hoarse, but his eyes were still burning. "Isabella, shoot!" A scream erupted from deep in her chest. Isabella pulled the trigger. The gunshot rang out, sharp. Cain stopped, eyes wide. He staggered, then fell face down on the sand. Blood stained the dry ground. Isabella dropped the gun, her hands shaking. Her whole body collapsed, sobbing. Nathan rolled to one side, coughing, trying to catch his breath. He struggled to his feet, his hands bloody but still reaching for her. "You saved us both." Isabella collapsed into his chest, tears streaming down her face. I thought I couldn't, but I did." Nathan held her tightly, his voice firm. "No one can touch you again. Never." In the sky, the sunset dyed the desert red. The wind blew sand as if erasing the traces of the fallen villain. Isabella knew. From this moment on, she was no longer a commodity, no longer a victim. She had saved herself. The desert was eerily quiet after the gunshot. The wind stopped howling, leaving only sand and dust floating in the air, swirling and then disappearing. On the ground, Samuel Cain's massive body lay motionless, his gray eyes wide open, but lifeless. Isabella fell to her knees, her whole body trembling. The sound of the explosion still echoed in her head. The first gunshot in her life, the one that had severed the chains that had bound her for so many years. Hot tears welled up, but this time not from fear, but from a relief she had never known. "Isabella." Nathan's voice was hoarse. He staggered to sit up, his chest heaving with exhaustion. She rushed over and knelt beside him. "Are you okay?" I thought. "I'm still alive, thanks to you." Nathan smiled awkwardly, his bloody hand still reaching up to lightly touch her cheek. You did what many people wouldn't dare. Stand up against evil. Isabella held his hand tightly, squeezing it as if clinging to the fact that he was still here. She choked out, I didn't think I had the courage, but when I saw you dying, I knew, if I didn't act, I would lose everything. They sat together in the red sunset. Raven whinnied softly, stepping closer, as if reminding them that the road ahead was still long. Nathan slowly stood up, though his wound made him wince. He bent down, using the last of his strength to turn Samuel Kane's body over, searching for the paper bags. Debt documents, marriage papers, all were thrown onto the sand. Nathan lit a fire. The flames licked the papers, turning them to ash. He has no power over you now, he said, his voice firm. No signature can bind your soul again. Isabella watched the papers turn to ash, her heart feeling cleansed. For years she lived in humiliation because of the careless strokes of a pen, because of the signature of a terrible stepfather. Now, everything had disappeared in the fire, giving her back a life. That night, they set up camp near a rocky hollow, drawing water from the small stream Nathan had mentioned. The fire flickered, illuminating the scratches on Isabella's hands and the bruises on Nathan's neck. In the dim light, they sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Isabella spoke, her voice trembling but determined. You're the first person to treat me like a person, not a commodity. I don't know what to say other than, thank you. Nathan looked at her, his eyes softening. You don't owe me anything. You're the one who saved me today. Maybe we saved each other. In that moment, the distance between them disappeared. Nathan reached out, gently pulling her closer. This time, Isabella didn't back down. She let herself nestle into his chest, feeling his strong but warm breath. In the middle of the harsh desert, they found an unshakable refuge. Each other. The kiss came naturally, slowly but deeply, like a silent promise. Isabella closed her eyes, tears mixing with her smile, believing for the first time that her heart could belong to someone without fear. The next morning, as dawn broke, they dug a shallow hole in the sand. There was no tombstone, no prayer, only sand and stone as witness. Samuel Kane and his men were buried here, unsung, unmourned. Isabella stood watching, feeling not horror but relief. She turned to Nathan, taking his hand. Let him sleep in the sand. Don't mention him again. I want to live for what lies ahead. Nathan nodded, his deep blue eyes shining with faith. As they set off, the desert stretched out endlessly. But this time, Raven's hooves were not as heavy as before. Isabella held her head high on horseback, her hair flying in the wind. A new strength rose in her heart. The strength of someone who dared to say no to chains. Nathan rode beside her, his eyes occasionally glancing at her, a strange light. Not the look of a savior, but of a companion. Where do you want to go after all this? Nathan asked. Isabella smiled softly, her first smile in years. Anywhere, as long as it's free. Maybe west, where the sea is. I used to dream of seeing the sea. Nathan nodded, the corners of his lips curling up. Then I'll go with you. Sea or mountains, anywhere. I've wandered long enough. Now I've found a reason to stop. Isabella felt her heart warm, her fear melting away in the morning light. The sun rose slowly, dyeing the sky a golden yellow. Two figures, a man and a woman, rode side by side long on the sand. Before them, an endless road opened up. No one knew where it would lead. But it was filled with hope. Isabella turned to Nathan and whispered, You know, all my life I've only seen myself as a commodity, but today I know I am me and I am free. Nathan smiled, his hand lightly touching hers as she held the reins. And you are not alone anymore. The sand kicked up under the horse's hooves. The blue sky stretched out. The harsh desert was no longer a prison, but a door to the future. In Isabella's heart, an oath resounded. I will live, I will love, and I will never bow to chains again. And so they went. Two people once swallowed by darkness, now together heading towards the light. That night, they stopped in a small valley, where a babbling brook ran through it, and the green grass grew thicker amid the dry sand. The moonlight shone on the water, shimmering like 1,000 broken pieces of glass. To Isabella, that place was no different from heaven after long days of thirst. Nathan lit a fire, the smoke rising with the smell of burning wood. The two sat close together, silent, letting the wind carry the scent of nature and the warmth of human breath. Isabella tilted her head, looking at Nathan's broad shoulders, the scars running zigzag down his arms. They were not only traces of battles, but also proof that he was still here, alive to protect her. "Nathan," she whispered. He turned around, his blue eyes shining from the fire. "What's wrong? Do you see, this is home?" Nathan was momentarily stunned. A man who had wandered the far west with no place to anchor, no place to call home. But when he looked into her eyes, he understood. Home is not four walls, but where the heart finds peace. "Yes," he replied, his voice as low as the wind. "You are my home." At that moment, no more words were needed. They leaned in, reaching for each other. The kiss was not hasty, but passionate, earnest, as if to fill the years of loneliness. Nathan's hand gently squeezed her waist, pulling her closer, while Isabella trembled but did not retreat. For the first time in her life, she did not feel afraid. All the chains were broken, only a willingness, a devotion from the bottom of her heart remained. By the flickering fire, two broken people found each other, gave each other everything: faith, love, and the desire to live as themselves. Finally, when both were silent in each other's arms, Isabella rested her head on Nathan's chest, listening to his steady heartbeat. In the breath mixed with the smell of smoke and skin, she whispered softly, her voice melting into the night. "You are my first." Nathan gently held her tighter, his eyes closed, his lips curved into a rare smile. He did not need to make distant promises, because right now, he knew, they had found their place. Isabella's story is not only a journey to escape from a brutal man, but also a proof that freedom always has its price. Sometimes blood, sometimes tears, but worth it to stand up. A girl who was once considered a commodity, when daring to take her destiny into her own hands, turned herself into the master of her life. And sometimes, home is not where we were born, but where we find someone who makes us believe that we are worthy of love.